Grogu and Din Djarin are on their way to Tython, the planet to which Ahsoka Tano pointed them. There, Mando is supposed to put the child onto the Seeing Stone, where he can see his path and can be felt by the few remaining Jedi still around. With this chapter's title being The Tragedy, will they reach the planet? What kind of tragedy lies in front of us? Hi there, it's Micha. Come inside and you will be as surprised by the answer as I was. I just watched chapter 14, The Tragedy, and I'm happy to say that though this title fits the outcome, the chapter itself was far away from being one. Be sure that there are some thoughts I like to share with you, and I'm also curious about this week's Easter eggs, as usually provided by my friend and Star Wars superfan Neal, who has a vast background knowledge around the Star Wars extended universe, seeing details that the more casual fan wouldn't notice. Neal also composed the music for these review videos. Thanks man! Make sure to stay tuned till the end to find out the answer to last week's quiz question and to hear the new one. Quick call out, since last episode gave us the official name of the kid, Grogu, I will retire using the term Baby Yoda from this moment on. But enough of that, let's jump right in. This episode starts with Grogu playing with his favorite toy, the knob from the steering lever in the cockpit. Mando takes it and repeats the trial from last episode. And again the kid masters to snatch the ball right from Din's hands by using the Force. Something that makes the Mandalorian curse. But more on that later. They reach Tython and find the Seeing Stone right away, on a mountain plateau. But there is no place to land the ship, so they park nearby and fly the rest by jetpack. After placing Grogu on the stone, nothing seems to happen at first. When a spacecraft arrives a few minutes later, a vehicle that keen eyes may remember from The Empire Strikes Back, where it landed in or on Cloud City, Mando wants to grab the child and run, but Grogu is in a trance-like state, protected by a force field that Mando can't penetrate, so he decides to buy Grogu some time. After a warning shot, Boba Fett appears, who quite reasonably just asks for his armor back. To Din's question if he's a Mandalorian, Boba answers, "I'm just a simple man making my way through the galaxy." And to the question if he is sworn to the Creed, he says, "I give my allegiance to no one," but adds that the armor was his father's and now belongs to him, something that doesn't seem to convince Din. That's when Fennec's voice is heard, saying she got the kid in her crosshair, but on Boba's ask they all put down their weapons to talk, including Din's jetpack. Turns out that the sharpshooter Fennec Shand, who was gunned down in Chapter 5, The Gunslinger, by that wannabe bounty hunter who betrayed Mando, was not dead, but saved by Boba Fett. She is therefore in his debt and in his service. Boba makes a deal. He gets his armor back and they guarantee the child's safety during the transaction. A fair deal, as the bounty on Grogu is now 10 times the worth of the armor, according to Fennec. Before they can discuss this further, a transporter full of stormtroopers arrives, starting to shoot at the three. While Mando runs to the child, leaving behind his jetpack, Boba and Fennec take on the troopers. An epic fight starts up, in which we can witness a sharpshooter's efficiency on one hand, and on the other hand the brute force a skilled warrior can bring down on an enemy with just a several foot high metal club, with which Boba Fett smashes and stabs the troopers left and right. In the middle of the battle, Boba notices, with a smile, that the entrance to the Razor Crest, Din's ship, is wide open. While Mando, without success, tries to interrupt the force field around Grogu, a second trooper transporter arrives, forcing Din to join the battle. The moment he left, Grogu comes out of a trance and the field dissolves, with the child being completely exhausted. Din finds a completely surrounded Fennec and joins her, saying, "You can leave, I owe you from last time," where he didn't check if she was actually dead. She answers that they have a deal and keeps shooting. When they are pretty much cornered again, Boba lands in his full remaining gear and kicks ass again, using gadgets and trick shots that ultimately scare the troopers back on their two ships, which Fett then destroys via rocket. Just a moment later, a shot from above explodes the Razor Crest. Looking up, they see the giant shape of a spacecraft. Mando runs for the child the same moment as up in the ship. Moff Gideon orders to dispatch the Dark Troopers, 4 bulky robots sent to fetch Grogu. And they take him right in front of Din's eyes. Without his jetpack, he can't even pursue them, but Boba, in his ship, is trailing them back to the Imperial cruiser. A view he almost unbelievingly comments with, "The Empire is back." Back from the plateau, Mando is looking at the ruins of a Razor Crest, being only able to salvage the knob the kid loves so much, which he pockets, and the Beskar spear. Boba proved to be a real man of honor. Even after earning back the armor, he wants to prove to Mando that his claim to the armor is legitimate by showing him its log files, where his father is named as the owner. Jango Fett was also a foundling, and even fought in the Mandalorian Civil War. He thanks the two and was ready to say goodbye, but to his surprise they say that they are still in his debt, as the deal was to guarantee the kid's safety, which is only given after Grogu is returned into Din's care. The episode ends with 2 small add-ons. First, we see Mando meeting up with Cara on Tatooine, where she just accepted the job of being officially the Marshal on the New Republic's behalf. He asks her to locate Mayfield, the mercenary he worked with on the prison break in Chapter 6, The Prisoner, because he wants to spring him to help with a mission. Cara says she can't help with that as there are rules she needs to follow now. Something that seems to change after he mentioned that the Empire got the kid. Secondly, we see Moff Gideon looking at his little prisoner, who is powering himself out by throwing around some troopers using the Force. After showing the child his dark saber, for whatever reason, he has the kid shot with a stun ray and then sends a message to Dr. Pershing saying that they now have the donor. Let's say it straight away, this was one hell of an episode. For me, the strongest one yet. And there was a lot of things I didn't expect this week. I expected to see the Seeing Stone at the end of the season, with the path being shown to us then, especially since Tython is supposed to be shredded in myth, so I was surprised they found it right away. One minor detractor here, it took them a minute to find the Seeing Stone. Either the planet has not much going for itself, or the galactic GPS is just the best. But hey, let's just go with advanced technology. I was hoping that the Empire wouldn't take the child, but it was clear that the tracking device somehow will be relevant soon. From that standpoint, I am happy that the Seeing Stone was not in the last episode, because Grogu being kidnapped as a cliffhanger would have been inhumane. Now we will likely see him back with Mando before the season comes to a close. I also didn't expect Cara to take the official job so soon, but I called that she would, so that's nice to see. On the other hand, I expected the dark suits to be used for the clone experiments, but those turned out to be Dark Troopers, robots, as Neal predicted. And my expectation was that we would see Boba Fett earlier in the season, but as an antagonist, for a while, until both had a talk and see how similar they are, ultimately landing on the same side of things. That happened later, but way faster as expected, but was also epic to see. Boba is again played by Temuera Morrison, who also voiced him across multiple TV shows and games, as well as his father Jango Fett, including live-action appearances in the prequel trilogy. I love that they bring him in as a good guy with a clear code of honor, if he is not double-crossing Mando, but I don't see any indicator for that. I mean, the Empire got Grogu, so if he was supposed to create a diversion, his job would have been done. And would that really fit his profile? Let's look at what we know about Boba Fett from the original trilogy. He's a bounty hunter, like Din, belongs to the guild and upholds their laws. So if he takes a job, he goes through with it. From his standpoint, Han Solo was just a smuggler who double-crossed Jabba the Hutt, who had a claim on him. It's a grey area, our recurring theme, regarding if that was an official and legal claim, but then the Empire ruled at that time and was the governing organ, so grey area. And again, Han was no choir boy either, killing a bounty hunter like Greedo, granted being a crooked one but all the same, in cold blood, at least in the original sequence of events. So from his perspective, Han had it coming, no moral reason not to hunt him. And as Boba says, he gives his allegiance to no one. Sure, he had to cooperate with the Empire from time to time, because they were governing, like it or not. And from his actions today, we can say it's more on the not like them end of things. He just tried to remain neutral back then as well, somewhere in the grey area. He may be for hire, but he is also a man of honor, even proving his claim to the armor he could just have kept and left Mando behind. He even sticks to a deal they never formally finalized, but because he took the armor himself, he considered it an agreement on his end, sticking to it, to Mando's surprise. We also learn that the Mandalorians are only particular about Beskar that was plundered during the Purge. If it was given legitimately or belongs to the family, it is fair to keep it. I'm curious to see more about Boba's and Fennec's backstory. What happened since he was thrown into the Sarlacc pit? How did he lose his armor? Why didn't he take it from Cobb Vanth? Was he on Tatooine the whole time? How did he afford the cyber implants for Fennec, and where? And how did he track Mando here? Many questions that will hopefully be answered along the way. Next up, the fight sequences, and boy were they amazing. First the shootout, where even a giant rock was crashing some troopers, and the mighty force Boba unleashes not even using a blaster, but a club. And when Mando and Fennec joined forces, it even upped that level, just to culminate in seeing Boba Fett in armored action. Wow! That's what I'm talking about, and that's what I wanted to see in Chapter 11, The Heiress, when 4 Mandalorians fought side by side. By the way, I changed my mind about the 2 filler episodes from last season. I still stand by the fact that I believe the original concept was for The Mandalorian to be a feature film that then was divided into 6 parts, as episode 5 and 6 of the 8-episode season didn't add anything to the storyline. I thought they put them in to ramp up the episode count, making them more relevant retroactively, but I now realize that they plugged them in to set up season 2, to lay the seed for the next story arc, as Fennec is quite important and we saw someone finding her in season 1 who turns out to be Boba. And also Mayfield, Bill Burr's mercenary character, will return. I liked the guy, who was on the wrong side of things but still had some kind of honor. He was paid to betray Mando, so he did. But in his file we can see that he didn't snitch on Mando. Mando might have even convinced him not to kill the guard back on the ship, as he was shot by Sian. I assume he will be a man of his word once he accepts the job. He is just not as picky with who his client is and what the job involves, being even deeper in the grey area, but we can work with that. Nice to see him return, as it is a really cool role for Burr, more serious as usual but still with a funny undertone. As always, I enjoyed the dynamic between Din and Grogu, with Din evolving more and more into a father for the child. At the start of the video I referred to Din cursing after the kid fetches the knob using the Force. He then starts telling something before stopping and saying that he can't train him, as he is too strong and needs a Jedi to guide him. And Grogu then needs to go with him. That was the deal. Speaking more to himself, convincing himself to let the kid go, likely cursing because he hoped the prior usage of the Force was just a fluke, a mistake. Because if there is not much power there, then the kid could stay with him, right? Now he can't ignore it, so he cursed, knowing that if a Jedi shows up, he will have to say goodbye. And you can see it would break his heart. Highlighted in scenes like where he constantly uses Grogu's name, enjoying how the kid reacts to being properly addressed, which makes Mando almost giggle like a child himself. Or the fact that the first and almost only thing he picks up from the Razor Crest's wreck is the knob that Grogu loves so much. And with his Beskar spear being the only other thing he picks up, we can be curious to see if that also has an impact on his fighting style going forward. The only other thing that bothered me a bit was the fact that Mando laid down his weapons and jetpack on Boba's request, though there was no real reason to ask for it, the jetpack is no weapon per se, and that he then rushed back to Grogu without it. But as that was necessary for the story's progression, we can overlook that weak exposition and Din's temporary forgetfulness. So, quick prognosis. For the rescue team we have Mando, Boba, Fennec, likely Mayfield and Cara, maybe Greef tags along, maybe Cobb Vanth also lends a hand. I'm also pretty confident that Bo-Katan's search for the Dark Saber will bring her there as well, maybe in a fortunate moment, or she joins right before. Maybe even the New Republicans with their X-Wing fighters may join in. That will likely be the epic battle in the finale in Chapter 16, while my guess is that the next episode, Chapter 15, is about assembling the team, including bringing out Mayfield. Now for the rating. As I claim this to be the best chapter yet, I consequently need to score it higher as Chapter 12, The Siege. So 9.5 points are in order. My highest score this decade, I believe. And earned, though I guess I might revisit some other great movies in the past and re-evaluate, as I was likely to stingy all the time as well. But I'm curious to see how a superfan like Neal received this one, that has less Easter eggs, likely, but so much payoff and action. And yes, he loved the episode and scored it with 10 out of 10 points again. Also calling it the best episode so far, though adding of this season. I need to find out if there was one episode last season that he liked more than this one. So between the two of us, this one gets 10 out of 10 points, as mathematically I have to round up. Neal loved the action sequences, obviously, especially Boba Fett with his armor back on. This chapter was exciting and nerve-wracking from start to finish. He was thrilled to see the return of Fennec Shand and enjoyed watching her shooting skills, as well as enjoying Din talking to Grogu in the opening scene. Let's see if Neal was able to dig us up some... Dank Farrik. Did you wonder what the term was that Din used to swear in this episode? We've heard him use this phrase before in Chapter 1, The Mandalorian, and Chapter 9, The Marshal. And although it's never been outright explained, there's really only one meaning that makes sense. The context in which the expression is used makes it clear that it is an exclamation of anger, frustration, as well as astonishment, most likely a swear word. Like several similar expressions characters have delivered over the years, there's no on-screen explanation for the phrase or its origin. However, considering how and when it's typically used, it's quite obvious what the overall intent is. #poop emoji. Slave 1. In this chapter we got to see Boba Fett's ship, the Slave 1, which we have previously seen in The Empire Strikes Back, Attack of the Clones, and the Clone Wars animated series. Jango Fett originally stole Slave 1 and outfitted the craft with a number of weapons including laser cannons, projectile launchers, and seismic charges. After Jango's death, the craft came into the possession of his son, Boba Fett, who used it throughout his own bounty hunting days. Fennec Shand. She is an original character created for this show. This week we see her return. Fennec is an assassin and mercenary who worked for many of the top crime lords. After the fall of the Empire, the New Republic demolished most syndicates. Being on the run, she was tracked down in Chapter 5, The Gunslinger, by rookie bounty hunter Toro Calican, with the help of Din Djarin, as we know. Calican shot her and left her for dead, but she was found by someone at the end of the episode. Many people believed that this was Boba Fett, and that was spot on. She was saved with the use of cybernetics. Boba's weapons. In this episode we see Boba Fett is using Tusken Raider weapons, such as the Gaffi Stick and the Tusken Cycler Rifle. The Gaffi Stick. Gaffi Sticks are the preferred melee weapons of the Tusken Raiders and features 4 separate weapons rolled into one. There's a spiked bludgeon for clubbing, a hook for snagging, a spearhead for jabbing, and a 4-bladed axe or mace for giving foes a merciless slap chop. Some accounts had Tuskens dipping the ends of their weapons in venom to paralyze their enemies, in case getting clobbered with a 4-foot sand shillelagh didn't do the trick already. A point to note is that Gaffi Sticks were prized possessions of the Tusken Raiders, who built them from whatever scrap metal they find. Their status as beloved implies that, in order to get one in his hands, Boba probably either killed a sand person or lived with a tribe. The Tusken Cycler Rifle. The Tusken Cycler Rifle is the standard projectile weapon used by Tusken Raiders in ranged combat. They vary in design and they were often homemade creations or pieced together through scavenged shipwrecks, smelted metals or other gathered refuse. These rifles are known to have a highly impressive range and stopping power. The Darksaber. In this episode we see the Darksaber for the first time since Season 1. The Darksaber is an ancient black-bladed lightsaber. It has a unique blade that was shorter than that of most lightsabers and shaped like a traditional sword. Its overall style is distinctly Mandalorian and the sound emitted by its blade is higher pitched than other lightsabers. The Darksaber has a crystal that serves as a conduit for force energy. The wielder's thoughts and actions guide the blade's current of power, and the blade often produces an electric effect in response to a heightened emotional state. According to Mandalorian custom, one could only obtain the Darksaber by defeating the previous owner in combat. Should they have claimed it in another way, that claim was considered illegitimate. So much for the Easter eggs. How did you like this episode? Do you also love it? Let us know in the comments. And here the answer to the quiz question from last episode. Diana Lee Innocento, who portrayed the magistrate in that chapter, is an actress and experienced stuntwoman. Martial arts runs in her family because her father is a renowned martial arts master. But do you know who her godfather is? The godfather is no one else than late martial arts legend Bruce Lee himself. Now to this week's question. This is not the first time Ming-Na plays a character that is technologically enhanced. In which series was she temporarily portraying a robotic version of her main character? Let us know in the comments. That's it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and feel free to share it with your friends. And why not subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any future video. Make sure to also hit the notification bell so you will get a heads up whenever a new video is posted. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching!